Lee and Blake Lovell here. Excuse the voice on my end. I've got a cold. We are going to talk NCAA bracketology, and especially as it relates to the SEC. Blake, we got a big weekend for the SEC ahead with two huge games that I think could move teams up or down a seeding line, or maybe secure some seeds for some teams in good spots.
Don't let Chris kid you about the voice. He's been calling the Hogs. That's what's been happening.
That's what it is.
And no, I'm just kidding. No, we made our picks yesterday, and like we said, it's these two big games. Arkansas and Kentucky's going to be fantastic. Tennessee and Auburn will be fantastic. And this isn't just a weekend that you look at those two games. I mean, you've got other teams that are playing in interesting spots elsewhere. South Carolina, I think, probably has the most to. Outside of those top teams, I think South Carolina has the most to gain this weekend, probably, if you think about it, because they're on the road against Alabama. Florida has nothing to gain from beating Georgia. Mississippi State and Vanderbilt really don't have a lot to gain from beating one or the other. Ole Miss, Texas A&M, there's no kind of anything at stake there. LSU gains nothing from beating Missouri. So I think certainly those are the three games that will have NCAA tournament implications, but also SEC title implications. Regular season title, depending on how Kentucky, Arkansas, Tennessee, Auburn play out. But yeah, after that, I think that South Carolina probably the team that is not on that radar right now. But you win at Alabama, and at least you add another quality win to your resume. So,
You thinking Carolina's got a chance with some wins to get in the picture here? Because I think the net's pretty far down.
Well, it is, but I don't think it's unprecedented to think that if they win out and then win a couple in the SEC tournament. I mean, which again, like we're saying here, I'm saying this as though if you are South Carolina and you want to have any chance, like you have to win. Like there's no other alternative. You have to win this game against Alabama. And quite frankly, are you going to go and win at Auburn? Probably not. But yet that's still kind of a must-win game. But I think it at least puts them in a position where, like we say, remember what we talk about with this stuff. When we make these projections, why I'm saying that South Carolina could get into the picture is because we have no idea who they're going to play in the SEC tournament. And that can account for a lot, because if you get a first round game against a team that's actually a projected tournament team, there's another potential win, and then what if you go on and beat the next team, which is going to be a tournament team, so those are the things we're factoring in. Right now, South Carolina is not even on the radar. But if you beat Alabama, well, there's another one. And then let's say you beat Missouri, okay, that doesn't do anything for you, but it avoids a bad loss. You're probably not going to win at Auburn. So that's just what I mean by that is, if you're trying to find another team out there, Florida has nothing to gain this weekend. They only have everything to lose, right? Florida loses to Georgia, they're toast. That's it. But if South Carolina beats Alabama, all right, you move up a little bit. And at least you set yourself up for you control kind of your own destiny type of situation over the next couple weeks. So,
okay, I think team with the biggest latitude and where they can end up down the stretch, probably Arkansas, because games against Kentucky, LSU, and Tennessee. Right now, the SEC has got 6 teams that are going to go to the big dance. And South Carolina, we talked about them. Florida's another one to talk to, but right now, I've got Arkansas. I'm making just a list of not just where I think they are as a seed, but where they are overall. I've got Arkansas at 21, a spot behind Alabama, which I think Arkansas is the better team, but Alabama's resume is a little better. Plus, Bama won head-to-head. But Arkansas, I mean, that's right on the cusp of 5. You beat Kentucky. I think you're a solid 5. Who knows, maybe a 4. Who knows what the Hogs could do if they get Tennessee and LSU too. Yeah, I think we're probably talking about a 3 seed, Blake.
No, and that's what I mean. Like we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and that the team that was going to have the biggest jump was not going to be the teams that were at the top, because they're already at the top, right? There's only so far Auburn and Kentucky can go up, and you just don't really see a path for Alabama to make that jump. You don't really see a path necessarily for Tennessee. Tennessee's not going to be a 1 seed. I mean, it's just like that's not going to happen. So you're talking about what's the furthest a team can move up. And as of a couple of weeks ago, Arkansas was the only team that fit that criteria, just based on how they were playing after they had beaten Auburn. Because you're saying, all right, you've still got Alabama, which they lost by 1. You've still got Tennessee. You still got Florida. Now you got Kentucky, LSU, and Tennessee again. So they have the biggest range just because I mean, I said on the last couple videos, like, I did not think there was much of a chance when we were projecting a month and a half ago about Arkansas better figure it out quick because the second half of their schedule is just brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And yet here they are. I mean, I'll just repeat, like, the second half of their schedule is brutal, but they are 1 point away from still being unbeaten in that part of the schedule. So these next three are going to be tough, but still, if you beat Kentucky, you beat LSU, even if you lose at Tennessee, like, you're still in a pretty good spot beating Kentucky and LSU. So I do think Arkansas is still the team that probably is most intriguing just from a seeding standpoint because they are the one. I mean, like we mentioned, remember, let's look at the scenarios for this weekend. If Arkansas beats Kentucky, Tennessee beats Auburn, that SEC title race, that regular
Yeah.
season title, that means something. And, so that still is something that's in play for all of those teams going into the final two games. So that is where I still look at Arkansas, and they are like the center of the universe right now in terms of SEC basketball because they are the one that I think a lot of things are going to depend on in terms of seeding. Because remember, too, if they beat some of these teams, well, what does that do to Kentucky? What does that do to Auburn if they don't get the regular season title? Those kind of things, and I think that's where a lot of possibilities there.
Well, the reason Arkansas is such a wild card, probably the lesser reason, Arkansas has lost 2 quad 3 games. But the second thing is you look at big wins, beating Auburn, beating Tennessee, won at LSU, but those are really the only 3 wins of significance in terms of teams that are going to the NCAA tournament, unless Florida makes it. And that's a road win that's going to matter a little bit anyway. But my point being, Arkansas has got a chance to double its number of significant wins here. And the reason I've got Arkansas behind Bama is look at what Bama's done. Beating Gonzaga on a neutral site, beating Houston, beating Baylor, beating Tennessee, beating Arkansas, LSU, beat Miami on a neutral site, and oh, by the way, also got a win in Gainesville.
I was gonna say, like, Alabama, we keep talking about it, but it's
that is an unusually long list of big wins, by the way, for everybody in the field.
Yeah, and I was gonna they are the team that, as I keep mentioning, you don't want to see them, fall to a 7 or a 6 or something like that. I think if you're the 3 or the 2, like, that's just the kind of team that, because you've seen the good, you're like, well, if there's a chance we get that good, they are a team that's beaten, potentially, like we said, a top seed, top couple seeds, teams like that. So it's just that's so hard for me to kind of look at them and, just kind of understand what are you really going to get no matter where they're seated with them. And I think they're going to be the one that the most people are going to have the biggest argument about because you see all the wins, but you also see the losses. And I think that's why some of the fan bases will look at Alabama and be like, well, they seem really high here, but it is about wins. And going back on the Arkansas thing too, I know we no longer use the final 10 games metric and all that, but you can't tell me there's not, if I'm the committee and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, all right, this is Arkansas now versus Arkansas when they lost some of those games, to Hofstra and teams like that. It's just that will be weighed and that will be understood that this is not December. And I think that's something else that I find interesting, especially with those two teams. I mean, really, I think Alabama and Arkansas are the most interesting seeding wise because you have interesting resumes based on where Arkansas was and now is, and Alabama based on all the good wins, but some of the bad losses. So
the other thing that's kind of interesting is this Auburn Kentucky, because right now I think Auburn is a 1, Kentucky is a 2, but that could even flip after Saturday. Auburn's big wins: beat Kentucky at home, 1 at Alabama and at home against Alabama, so 2 wins there against the Tide. Beat LSU, beat Murray State, beat Loyola of Chicago. All 6 of those teams are going to the tournament. Beat Oklahoma and Florida, which might go to the tournament. Then you look at Kentucky, the list a little shorter, but some huge wins there. Win at Kansas, beating Tennessee and Lexington, sweeping Alabama, beating LSU at home, and then also win against Florida. Auburn right now has got the better line across the board. No, the thing that's interesting to me, and you and I have been over this all year, I don't understand what the net and the the predictive metrics, the BPI, Ken Pomeroy, Jeff Sagarin have against Auburn, but they don't rate as high in those as I would have thought. Kentucky rates high across the board. 3 in BPI, 3 in Pomeroy, 4 in Sagarin. But I think it's going to be about who bags the big wins down the stretch if that one's going to flip.
Yeah, I mean, is the Auburn thing, and you're talking to someone who does not dive as much into that. I mean, is it just as simple as road performance and those kind of games. I mean, I don't know. I assume there's something in there that has. I mean,
Blake, I'll be honest.
You know what I mean? Like it's just
there are
if
several
you're winning
teams.
by
Yeah.
1 at Missouri, 2 at Georgia, right? I mean, if you're kind of combining, I assume there has to be something to that. I don't know, but maybe that's just me trying to pull something out of a hat here. But
May I gripe for a minute?
Yeah.
I do not understand.
Yeah.
The net. There's several teams that I can't make any sense of. Auburn is one. I think Auburn should be higher in the net. I don't know why. That team is 10th.
Yeah.
Houston. This is the one that just kills me. And I know Houston's a good program. We know that. Kelvin Sampson's a great coach, been to the Final Four. But Houston is 4 in the net. Do you know how many teams Houston has beaten that are surefire going to the NCAA tournament?
Not a lot. None. Zero.
Zero.
Because, I mean,
they're 4 in the net. They're better than Auburn in all their predictive metrics. They've even lost one more game than Auburn. And it doesn't even compare. Like, I mean, the best win they have is they didn't even beat Memphis.
I was gonna say
SMU,
they lost that game to Memphis.
They lost to SMU also. It's not that. It's
No, that is an interesting one, and that's why I think for them, how they finished. They've still got 4 games left and pulling up their schedule, and I was like, I know they play Memphis again at some point. That last game of the season is going to be very big, I think, for them to kind of see how does that adjust. And it's big for Memphis, as we know, because where they stand. They're the last 4 or last team in for a lot of people right now. So, the Auburn Kentucky thing. It seems to me the consensus right now is that it's pretty much set, and this is where we talk about like this weekend, what a huge impact it could have on these two teams in particular, because they kind of are the underdogs, right? I mean, and you can, I mean, like we said, I don't know what even the lines are. We could maybe, I don't even know if they're even out yet. We're recording this, but they're both on the road with Kentucky and Auburn, and right now most people. I'm looking at bracket matrix here, which you can put as much stock or little stock into that as you want. But, it is. Auburn's the last number 1 seed. Kentucky's the first number 2 seed. And kind of when you average that out and you understand kind of where that line is right now for these two, I just think that, let's say both these teams win this weekend, which I think is probably going to be the tougher of all the scenarios. I think both of them winning on the road is probably – if we played all 3, right? Like if we say Arkansas and Tennessee win, splits, or Auburn and Kentucky win both games, I for some reason, like even though they are ranked the highest, I still think both of them winning on the road is going to be a challenge just because of the number we brought up with the SEC in college basketball, leading everyone in terms of home winning percentage. So that I think is a challenge, but it's like you understand the impact of this weekend because these 2 games are huge because, again, if they both win, I mean, that is just like, certainly you still have to win the rest of your games and you don't want to have a bad loss anywhere, but you're sitting pretty if both of these 2 teams win this weekend, but just because of the quality of wins those would be.
I think the thing I think you're rooting for if you're Auburn or Kentucky, and you're not rooting this, the thing I think you root for, did you hear me the first time?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I thought my mic was off. You're not wanting this to happen if you're Tennessee because you beat this team. But Arizona is a 1 seed. But the big wins there, UCLA, at Illinois, USC, Wyoming, maybe Michigan on neutral floor will mean a little bit. It's not a big list for a number 1. They've got a game. Let's see. The biggest one left is they go to USC, which could beat them. I think you're rooting for, if you want the SEC to get 2 1s, your path is probably Arizona needs to lose a game or 2.
Yeah, because I mean, what is
I don't know that Gonzaga or Kansas are falling. Although if it's Kentucky, Kansas. Then that might,
right.
if it's a head-to-head and it's even, yeah.
I think if that's the scenario I would look at and say, because I mean I'm looking at Kansas' remaining schedule. They're they play at Baylor on Saturday. I don't think that does anything to them if they lose. I don't. I could be wrong, but I don't think that changes a whole lot because those are 2 teams right now that are 2 of the top 6 or 7 teams. So. I mean, I don't know. Like, what about Baylor's path, right? Like, are they another team that you kind of look at? Because Baylor still gets Kansas at home. If they win that game, then they get a road game against Texas. That's another huge one. So, and then it's all about the tournaments, which is what we say. Like Baylor could go win the Big 12 tournament and beat Kansas again, and then all of a sudden Baylor's right there. So
Purdue's another one to watch out for.
I was going to say, and this is where we get into, Rocco did bring up a good point, and I would highly advise, this is why we're going to try to do these on Fridays probably until we get to the bracket. But we talked to Rocco last week, and I would highly advise listening to that. We did that podcast for him, but he brought up kind of the understanding of sort of the committee setting the bracket before you necessarily get some of those conference championship games, right? Or really even to the semis and in some scenarios. Now you're always going to have your backup plans for, let's say in the SEC, let's say a team like Florida runs the table to the championship or, someone like that. Well, obviously you're going to have your contingencies there to where, all right, well, Florida's done enough. They're going to get in. Or let's say, I don't know, let's say Alabama or Arkansas wins the SEC tournament, right? And it's just, that probably changes a little bit because you are talking about teams that will shift up a bit. But, for some of these top seeds like an Auburn or a Kentucky, again, if they meet in the SEC championship, if Kentucky wins, maybe that changes something to where, you compare them to Kansas and Baylor and some of these other teams. Purdue, like you said, they're another team right there. Maybe that kind of gives you that extra something. But if everything kind of stays the course, I don't know how much is put into that. And that's why we say it's easy for us to kind of project out now and say, well, in this scenario or that scenario, this is what needs to happen for these two to get number ones and all that. But it's really about what does the tournament look like and what is it's not just even like getting to it's what is your road? Like, what is your path to get through the tournament? And will that matter, again, for the committee's sake, who is pretty much already setting everything they need to set and is really just probably looking at a couple of those tiny little things that can make a huge impact, which, of course, is teams that steal bids, win their conference tournaments that you don't expect to get in, and those kind of things. So,
did we hit all the 6 teams that we think are in? I'm trying to remember.
I mean, we haven't really talked about LSU, but I mean,
yeah, okay.
I don't
at Arkansas and Alabama, that's 2 opportunities. The thing that I thought I pointed out about LSU, maybe I didn't. They're a little light on big wins. Kentucky, Tennessee, that's it, that are getting in. Yeah. Now, the thing with LSU is the committee's going to know that they had Pinson banged up and that hurt them. They played a pretty good non-conference schedule, really good, actually, and breezed through that. So I think that's another one to watch. Like, if LSU can bag a win at Arkansas or home against Alabama, I don't think LSU's falling out anyway, although I guess it could get mildly interesting if LSU were to lose those 2 games. Although it just seems like the schedule is so strong that they lose every night. When they lose a game, it's like the net just kind of shrugs its shoulders and says, yeah, we'll move them down a spot or keep them where they were.
I think if you were a team like LSU, you were really rooting for a much better performance from Belmont last night because that is a win you have, and then they just got completely
obliterated,
just destroyed. So that takes out any possibility, I think, for Belmont now, maybe to, they were in the conversation for some people, I think, in terms of an at-large, because you just assume Murray State's going to win that title. I don't know. That's still something where it's one loss. It's not a very appealing loss if you're the committee and you're looking at it and saying, oof, that team just lost by 30 something late in the season to the best team in their conference. How big is that gap, right? And that's where we talk about, like, this is the debate we're going to have, when you compare a Belmont to a Florida, right? And teams like that. And I think this is one that people are still going to discuss this, whether it's throw SMU in there too. I think SMU is another one that's an interesting study. That's just where this is going to get very fascinating over the next couple of weeks. And that's what we always say. It doesn't really matter what you do sometimes. What matters is what others do on the bubble too. And so I think for Florida, that has become an interesting spot.
Yeah, right now I've got Auburn at 1, Kentucky at 2, Tennessee at 3. I've got Alabama the last 5 and Arkansas the first 6. You could.
I wouldn't be surprised if that. I was going to say I think that changes just based on projecting out the rest of the regular season. I think that changes.
And I've got LSU as a 6, although LSU needs to get a big win or 2, or I think that becomes a 7 or an 8. So, and then Florida, poor Florida, just beat Kentucky at home. Then I think you got a really good shot.
Yeah, I think that's where, again, if you're looking at, there's so many different people to look at, and everyone has their preference. Like I said, we would highly advise checking out Rocco's stuff. He does a great job. And if you just look around at all the stuff, I mean, bracket matrix right now, Florida is looking at this, are they the fourth team out? I'm not exactly sure how they have it situated here, but if you want to look at Joe Lunardi, who, like it or not, he'll be the one that gets the most attention because it's ESPN, and that's what they use on the SEC games and such. I mean, as of right now, his updated bracket this morning, Florida's the 8th team out. So, but he's one I think that's probably still been lower on Florida than most people have, just even when they've been right there. But yet, I can sort of understand it at this point because I just, like we said, that Arkansas game was such a huge game for Florida, and it just felt like a missed opportunity to me because if you win that one, then you're set up to where, if you win the games you're supposed to, you beat Georgia and Vanderbilt. If you beat Kentucky, you're in. Like that's it. Like there's no debate. I think at that point, if you would have beaten Arkansas and you went out and beat Arkansas, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, you're in. But now it's like there's a lot of room for error because we talked about Vanderbilt game seems a little tricky on paper, Kentucky at home. So yeah, I think Florida. We revisit our conversation about Florida going into next weekend because there's nothing they're going to do in the next week that could be good that's going to help them. The only thing they can do would be bad. It's going to essentially remove them from the conversation if they lose to Georgia or Vanderbilt. So
yeah, Florida. If Florida wins out, 10-8 in the league, which is good, then you've got huge wins. You bagged one over a 1 in Auburn.
Yep.
You bagged one if they do it over a 1 or a 2 in Kentucky, and you bag one against Ohio State in the non-conference portion. What's you right now? Right around that 4 to 5 seed range. I mean, most teams don't have 3 wins that good. Now, also a loss to Texas Southern.
Well, but remember too something else. The Castleton stuff that will be taken into account. So I think that helps Florida, right? Because how many games did they lose when he was out? They lost 2, right? That would have been Tennessee and Ole Miss. So that is taken into account. Tennessee loss, no shame in that. But the Ole Miss loss, that's a bad one right now. So that I think too kind of helps Florida. So they've got to win out. I think that's the only scenario because that is where we get back to the conversation of if Florida doesn't win out, if they beat Georgia, beat Vanderbilt, lose to Kentucky, your scenario is you're hoping for a gauntlet in the SEC tournament. You're hoping for the hardest possible path because you have to beat good teams. Like you don't want to play Vanderbilt in the first round or South Carolina or someone because I don't think that's going to be enough, to put you in that position. So I think at that point you're rooting for like I don't even know, like give me Bama in the first round or give me LSU.
Bama and LSU. You want as much of those teams. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's where things would be at that point. And you don't want Mississippi State, because I don't think they're going to be in the conversation. So that is where things get tricky for Florida. It's going to be easier said than done. I think even Kentucky, it doesn't matter if Kentucky's at full strength or not. We talked about it. They're still a very good team, and that's going to be a challenge to beat them. But that game doesn't matter unless you beat Georgia and Vanderbilt, which I think the second one of that's going to be probably more interesting of the two.
Okay, let's do a hypothetical. We haven't talked Mississippi State. State beats Vandy and Auburn at home and then beats A&M on the road. 19-12 at that point, 10-8 in the league. I still think State needs to do some damage in the tournament because it just, wins of significance. Well, it beaten Arkansas and Auburn. Which had been so long ago that I almost forgot about that. But
yeah,
did nothing. 1-7 on the road.
Beat Alabama.
Yeah.
I would still anticipate them needing to win 2 of significance in the SEC tournament, and of significance I mean I don't think a South Carolina win will probably do it for them. They to me would be the one then begging for like Florida and Alabama LSU. Or LSU. Yeah. So I think actually at that rate, if we assume Florida and Mississippi State kind of, which I think they could kind of enter in a somewhat similar spot, although I think Florida would still be ahead in that scenario. if we assume everything goes according to plan and we're giving Mississippi State a home win over Auburn, because I think that's the only scenario where that's possible. They have to beat Auburn to be in the conversation. Then I think it's the same scenario. I think it's you got to have at least 2 wins of significance in the SEC tournament. You're hoping, in all honesty, you're probably hoping for the 8-9 game, right? Or because that's where you're probably going to. Well, I don't know at that point. See, that's where it gets tricky because remember,
if they don't beat Auburn, it is probably over, barring them making it to the title game and knocking off one of your big 4 teams at that point, which would be Arkansas, Tennessee, Auburn, and Kentucky.
You have 5 teams right now that are all within a game of each other in that middle, that crowded middle. We keep talking about Alabama, South Carolina, LSU, Mississippi State, Florida. I mean, even Vanderbilt, right, could throw themselves into the picture. I don't think A&M will wind up in there. I think they'll wind up being the number 11 team. But, and that's what we said. That's where your combination of possible seeding in the tournament, it's easy to you can't even think about it right now because it's like there are so many different combinations you could see. No matter what, you're going to have to beat one of the top 4 teams, right? I mean, it's as simple as that. Like, even it doesn't even matter who you beat in the first round. Like, you're going to have to beat one of the top 4 teams to get to the tournament. And I mean, I guess, look, if you want to earn your way in, that's how it works. And that's probably what it's going to come down to. So,
okay, I think Vandy's done, but
yeah,
beat Mississippi State, beat Florida, win at Ole Miss. That's 9-9. Then you probably got to win.
I think you got to get to at least the semis at that rate.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's give them 3, just for argument's sake. 17-13. That's the bad thing is unless you win, there's going to be a 14 in the loss column, which is a lot, and their out of conference schedule was not that strong.
Aren't they the one that don't they? They're the only team that's ever gotten in with
but
15.
there was no comparison in out of conference schedules between that one and this one. I mean, it was as night and day as you could get. So I mean, look, they had their chancing. It's if you go back, they beat VCU, they beat Loyola, one of those teams, SMU, but they whiffed against all of them.
Yeah.
No, I mean you can say no Chapman, no Robbins. I get it. That's a lot of ifs at that point. I mean, we got to string together a lot of ifs just to get them to a point of if. So,
yeah, there's only 6 teams right now. We don't have to play the what if game with.
Yeah.
I assume I don't. Someone asked me that I think yesterday. I don't think there's a scenario where any of the other teams fall out because
let me give you one, okay?
LSU losing out is probably the only.
LSU losing out that makes them 7-11.
Yeah,
one of those is to Missouri at home, which is probably not going to happen.
Here's the better question. Even at 8-10, is LSU fine?
Well,
I think they are.
I think, but I mean the computers love them. The injury situation is going to come up, but they haven't banked a lot of wins, Blake.
I know, but if they're 8-10, they beat Missouri at home. They lose to Arkansas on the road. No shame in that. They lose to Alabama at home. Not really any shame in that. I think you would only the conversation would only get interesting if they lose out, because that would be a 5-game losing streak to end the season, regular season, right? Let's say they lose out, 5-game losing streak to end the regular season. I don't think it's going to happen. If they beat Missouri, that eliminates that thought of you lose 5 in a row and then maybe lose 6 in a row in the SEC tournament. I think at that point it's like as long as you don't lose to a non-tournament team in the SEC tournament, I think they're fine.
The hidden strength of their resumes, they beat a lot of NIT type teams.
I was going to say, like,
Belmont,
I'm not
Penn
in
State,
love with
Wake,
it, but
maybe
I think
Ohio,
they're too. What are they in
Florida.
the net right now?
They are 18, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, they're fine.
They are.
Unless they lose to
they're
Missouri.
20. See, the computers love them. They're 23 in KPI.
Yeah.
They're 24 in strength of resume. They're 14 in BPI, 17 in KenPom, 20 in Sagarin. So the computers have got them in the top 25 across the board.
What's the highest team? Someone knows this is listening to this right now, and they're just thinking, I want to tell them. We need to start doing some live streams because we need this kind of information on the fly. What's the highest team that's ever been left out in the net?
It's only been around, 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, but I still think it's an interesting.
I feel like I used to know that with the RPI. I feel like there was a couple teams that were in the high 20s that got left out.
Missouri State was one of them, I remember.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't remember, but someone will know this. Leave in the comments. I don't know. I want to say it was in the 30s, and I think his power conference team maybe in the 30s. So NC State a couple years ago, I want to say, had like a 34, 35 maybe got left out, but I just don't see it unless LSU loses to Missouri. I think they're fine.
We should do
Everyone
a
else
live
is in.
stream when the bracket comes out.
Oh, we're absolutely doing that. We're gonna do some more live streams. So I know some of you guys have actually asked for that, and we will do more live streams now that our viewers are picking up here. We're gonna start doing more of those, especially once we get to the tournaments. If you think we're nuts for doing these daily right now, I don't know what to tell you once we get to the SEC tournament, because we're gonna be doing multiple daily. So, but hey, that's what we do. So
the thing I wonder is like how I'm gonna follow baseball and basketball at the same time.
Well, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna clone you.
We're not gonna sleep. That's what we're gonna do.
We sleep in May.
Which may be why I've got a cold.
It may be, but you gotta start resting up, because yeah, we're gonna need you pretty much all the time. So just get used to it. So,
my wife will love that.
You can call the Hogs later. Chris is not an Arkansas fan, by the way. We're having fun because we got a lot of Arkansas fans that have come into this.
We do. We love it.
The last week or so, but
they are passionate.
They love it. We got fans from everywhere. We got Auburn, Kentucky, Bama, Tennessee. We got people everywhere. Our guy Steak from Tennessee.
We love Steak.
Steak has fun with us. So
yeah. We've got some good people that reply to our comments.
No, we do. We
get one or two every video that you're just rolling your eyes at, but we like to. For the most part, we like to talk to you.
Some people enjoy it. Some people enjoy us, but if you don't, that's okay.
I think we're gonna interject a mailbag in here before too long.
Yeah, we got mailbags coming too. So just think about it. Like the next month, we got mailbags, we got SEC tournament, we got NCAA tournament. Yeah, it's gonna be wild. So hit that subscribe button.
One of these days, we need to do a live thing with people in the audience.
Oh boy. Then that's when you start getting stuff thrown at you, and
that's true.
I don't know. You get steak thrown at you, ice cream, paper clips, all kinds of stuff. It's just, trust me, I've been there. I'm just kidding. I've never actually been in that scenario and don't really have any, want to do that. So please don't do that. If we ever have a live show, don't throw anything at us, please.
Till we bring the dogs.
Oh, absolutely. Mine's sitting right here right now. He just got off the chair and he's laying on the floor dreaming. He's probably dreaming about something. Steak. It's probably steak now. I mean, he's probably thinking, man, these guys talking about steak. I'm ready to go. So
I think my dog's more interesting than I am. In fact, that's a for sure.
Well, you just solved our problem right there. You're gonna be able to cover baseball and basketball doing all this. The dog's gonna have to sit in sometime, and he's gonna have the hosting duties. Get the box scores printed, send it to him. He's got to start reading. So
he needs to put all that energy to work.
Send him the spreadsheet, the NCAA tournament. He's got to start looking at these resumes, quad 1 wins, BPI, all this. He's got to get on it. So he can chase. He can chase and hike later. You gotta get to work here. So
this is fun.
All right, there's bracketology. We're not as good as Rocco, but hey, that's what I said. Follow Rocco stuff. He's fantastic.
Full disclosure, we just started really diving into the math of this last night.
Because it doesn't really until now.
Because it's pointless until now.
Yes,
right.
Like that's why we wait. But we don't knock anyone who doesn't, because it's a fun practice. So,
any final words before the weekend?
Check out our predictions video, which if you're watching this, there's no doubt you already have, because this is probably going to wind up being our biggest video to date. So,
yep.
And we joke, but we do appreciate all the kind words and everything. We've gotten a lot of them here over the past month, just based on our channel just kind of blowing up here. So we appreciate all the kind words. Keep them coming. That just keeps us motivated, and we appreciate it.
Oh, I know what I meant to say. Hopefully the voice will be better Monday. I made it surprisingly better than I thought I would. The other thing is the audio quality. We are supposed to get fiber here at the Lee House, which should make a difference in what you guys see. That we have
game changer.
We have spent I don't know how many hours between you and I trying to figure out like why our resolution isn't quite what we wanted it. And I think I got my answer from AT&T this week.
It's funny.
Which, by the way, AT&T, they came and they dug all the stuff. They put the flags down. This was literally during the College World Series. They said it's going to be 2 months. I still don't have fiber. So here we are.
It's funny because if you watch us do other stuff, our stuff is clear as day, like everything, video, audio. Like I did this Auburn thing the other day, and like I'm thinking, wait a minute, is that me? Like look at my video quality. But the problem is when me and Chris record together, that's when the issues because of connection issues and that kind of stuff. So if you want to see us more clearly, you can either find us in other places or wait till those live shows where you're throwing steak at us. So,
but we did notice we want to up that, but it's beyond our control right now.
All good.
Have a good weekend, everybody.